Good evening, everybody. What's up? How's everyone doing? Has everyone had a good day so far? I'm quickly typing, letting everyone know that we're live. uh, uh, uh. Give me a brief moment while we start up right now. And then we'll start with the live stream. I'm striving to keep it at like 30 minutes or something. We'll see how far we go or how far we get. And it's also a little bit, trying out stuff, right? So this is the first one of these live streams that I'm doing. I'm going to try to do them daily. Now, I have to be honest with all of you. That seems like a bit of a challenge. Streaming every evening, believe it or not, but I also do other things outside of work and trading and markets. And usually the evening was when I kind of had that time, right? Usually like Monday to Friday, I work from something like 7:30 until basically until the evening. So then when I'm also streaming in the evening, I'm not sure how long I'll keep that up, but at least we're trying, and then maybe we're going to move it to the morning, and that people can also watch it a little bit later. Maybe that's an interesting idea, or maybe we're doing it something like 3 or 4 times a week. We will see, but for this week, I'm going to try to do it daily, and it's going to be awesome. Okay, we're going to do our best. We're going to make it nice. We're going to make it valuable, of course. That is most important. And then we'll see where it brings us. So I'm almost done letting everybody know that we're live, and then we'll get to the chat. And we'll talk about what we're going to be doing, because we do have a little bit of a time schedule. I don't want to, I want to provide as much value in as little time as possible. So welcome to the stream, everybody. Navid, Alex, welcome to the stream. Pluto Man, Suisi, Bandak Bros, The Ken, Andras, Mira, welcome to the stream. Mo Pixels, Druids, Nico, Lift Heavy, Jay, welcome to the stream, everybody. Broodje Kapsalon, amazing, welcome to the stream. Jurg, welcome to the stream. Chiare, welcome to the stream. But those were messages from earlier. But welcome to the stream, everybody. What we're going to do, user Damian, goedenavond. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Preston, we'll do Joanna, welcome to the stream. Look, what we're going to do in this live stream, and what the idea is just to talk about the markets. Okay, so talk about the markets. We already do more often. The thing is I wanted to make this a little bit more focused on real trading, right? Because ultimately, most of my videos are just analysis, right? And what a lot of people get wrong, most of you are not getting this wrong, but very often I get people saying that, oh, you said that it would go up, then you also bought, right? And usually that's not the case. I mean, look, almost every video, I tell you a direction, right? So this video on Bitcoin, I said, oh, I think we're going to drop down first, and then ultimately I expect a breakout. But it doesn't mean that I'm always trading it. I'm actually quite conservative with my trades at this point of time. So in these videos or in these live streams, I wanted to talk a little bit more about those trading setups. And what I focus on in terms of altcoins, what I focus on in terms of trades and potential trades, and what I'm looking at. And then at the same point of time, we'll also do a bit of an overview of the current fundamentals, which is obviously what I start with, right? So if I would write it out, what we're going to do in this live stream, and this is also, I think these live streams are also quite interesting for people to watch a little bit later, right? I mean, if you cannot tune in, because at the moment, I think it's like, we have quite a lot of viewers tuning in from China, Hong Kong, Australia, Dubai, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. I see all of you, but I believe right there at the moment it's something like, I believe that's 4 hours or 5 hours ahead, India at least. So it's in the middle of the night, right? So I also want to make these live streams a little bit easy and interesting for people to watch a little bit later. But yeah, so normally what I do in terms of in terms of my trade routine, because that's basically what we'll do, and then we will also identify setups, etc. Is first of all, I look at the fundamentals. What's going on? Can we expect the fundamentals to be bullish? Can we expect them to be bearish? How's the market reacting? Then we'll cover majors, and at this point of time, like normally for me, that's only Bitcoin. Bitcoin I trade at this point of time by far the most. Like I think since early January, I've traded Bitcoin by far the most. And then we'll talk about altcoins. But the altcoins I trade are usually altcoins either like normally just momentum, and then sometimes high caps, right? So high caps, I would say something like Hedera or Hyperliquid. But Hyperliquid at this point of time has quite a lot of momentum as well. And then at the end, and how long we have for this kind of depends on how long the other stuff takes. We can do some requests. Okay, so I already got some requests. I already saw some in the chat, which is great. I'll try to remember those, but let's get to the first things first. And I will keep an eye on the chat as well, but I hope you don't mind if I just kind of get into the zone, get into some sort of a flow state that I normally also get into when I'm analyzing. I think that's most valuable for all of you. And then every now and then I'll check the live stream, or I'll check the chat, and obviously we will have some interaction in between. But let me know, what do you think? Is that a good setup? What would you change? What would you improve? What do you think? What do you like? Right? We can also be a little bit positive about it, if you are, but don't lie, right? But let me know. But for now, let's get started. So generally, what I do in terms of fundamentals is I look at the news. The news I just checked on my own. I have multiple sources. This is a great source. So this is Data One. On X, this is relatively quick usually with everything that's going on. But ultimately, like everything what's going on in the Middle East right now, there's a lot of headlines coming out. But ultimately, I think the best thing you can do is just look at the real data, right? The real data tells you more. And the real data at this point of time is that oil is still relatively bullish. That's bearish. Volatility index is still elevated but has dropped down, so I would deem that slightly neutral. Dollar strength index is rallying, that is bearish. Gold is still quite bullish, that is bearish. Equities though, generally equities and crypto have held on relatively well. However, we'll take a look at Bitcoin in a moment. I do think that there's a potential break there. Because with Bitcoin right now, we've seen a lot of bullish momentum today, and I think that's very interesting. But then at the same point of time, the fundamentals are not necessarily amazing, as we just saw. And then we have a liquidation spike. We have a drop down below the 30-day rolling VWAP. We have a drop down below the previous month VWAP. I'm generally bullish about the markets, right? So I think in March, April, May, I think we can get some bullish momentum. I think we can get a breakout with Bitcoin, and I think that there's going to be quite a lot of altcoins that can follow that. But I'm not too certain about this move. You can see with Bitcoin right here that we have left quite a lot of gaps here to the downside. We have two major levels that I'm looking at, and that's first of all 67,500. That's where we have the previous day value area high, a single print, and the previous week value area high as well. So we're getting a little bit of top indications right here. Leads me to believe that we're going to push down. I'm interested in longing Bitcoin, but I do want to, like, you have two levels. You have that level here to the upside, which you just spoke about. And then a little bit lower, you have the 7-day rolling VWAP with the previous week VWAP and the point of control here at 66,100. Those are the two levels. I'm fairly certain that we're going to push down right here. Alternatively, but this is much, much more risky. Alternatively, if we get a high volume break above the 30-day rolling VWAP, there's a potential long setup there. But that, I think, is very risky, right? Especially given the price action we've seen right now, and also especially given that equities right now are pushing down quite aggressively, getting back to those fundamentals. So I think it's more likely, and I think that there's more opportunities, talking about Bitcoin, a little bit lower. But there's some nuance into what I'm looking for in terms of longing Bitcoin, because especially from that first level, I think the first level here with the previous week value area high in the single print. I love single prints. I think that's the area that I like most, but I do want to see some more I want to see some more confirmation there, given the fundamentals and given that major gap lower. Okay, whenever you have two gaps like these, like this, it very often happens that at least the lower gap partially gets filled. And if that partially gets filled, it's quite hard to set a stop loss, right? Because if I want to long Bitcoin from that level at 67,600, technically a nice area, but then, okay, the first resistance level is at the 30-day rolling VWAP. So then where are you going to place your stop loss? It's a very hard one, right? So I would like to see some sort of a reaction first, but we'll get to that in a moment. Because one more thing that I did want to show you is the Coinbase Bitcoin price. The Coinbase Bitcoin price at this point of time is trading at a premium. This, well, if you zoom in very closely, at the moment it's at a discount. But this has made me very bullish about the markets, or at least more optimistic about the markets. But again, I think it's most likely, if we zoom out on Bitcoin right now, I think it's most likely we'll get a breakout like this. I'm not certain yet, and I think it's unlikely that we're going to get a breakout today or tomorrow. Today especially given those higher time frame topping indications that we're having. So this I expect, but I'm not certain whether that's going to be March, April, maybe even May. Although I would say that's a little bit later. So those are my general thoughts on the fundamentals. We also spoke a little bit about Bitcoin already. Normally what I do, and if you're going to tune into these live streams more often, then obviously I'm not always going to tell you what I'm going to do at every part of the live stream, but bear with me here. This is the first time that we're doing this, of course. It's a little bit late. It's been a long day. But normally what I do, like I said, I trade Bitcoin by far the most. Bitcoin and XRP, I must say. But the thing is that, you know, trading majors such as Ethereum, Dogecoin, XRP, Sui, not ETHFI, but Solana, like that is interesting. But if I want to trade them, I need to see some sort of an indication that they are uncorrelated with Bitcoin, okay? Because if all of these majors are very correlated with Bitcoin, which usually they are, then why would I not take the trade on Bitcoin, right? Because if you look at Bitcoin right now and you compare it to Ethereum, it looks very similar, right? You have that 7-day rolling VWAP, the point of control, you have the single print, you have two gaps, so it looks completely the same. And then if we look at the comparative charts, right? So ETH BTC, XRP BTC, Doge BTC, Doge BTC, AVAX BTC, Litecoin BTC, and Sol BTC, all of these are flat. Okay, so I don't really see a reason at this point of time to trade anything else when it comes to majors than Bitcoin. Okay, because ultimately Bitcoin is still the best to trade. There's most liquidity, there's most volume, and it tends to respect the technicals that we stick to and that we need. It tends to respect them the most. Like I said, sometimes XRP is quite interesting. Like if I look at XRP right now, it looks somewhat similar to Bitcoin in the sense that we found resistance here at the 30-day rolling VWAP, pretty strong resistance, and we just capped out at the value area high. We have some support here at the 7-day rolling VWAP. Like for me, the most interesting support level for XRP would be this level right here. At 1.35, but maybe I'd be a little bit greedy, and I think with XRP, something that I'd like to see a trade setup I would actually take on XRP at this point of time, because XRP I actually like to trade quite a bit as well. I've covered XRP a lot, so I think XRP is quite tradable, but an interesting level that I see for XRP is this level right here. Okay, so what you can see right here is that we have a fair value gap still that was partially filled, but it was a very, very thin fill. So I actually count this fair value gap as unfilled. Sometimes when a fair value gap is only filled a little bit, I still count it as filled. But with this one, I would actually say it's unfilled. And then we have this naked point of control, right? So on Saturday, we had a point of control. That was the most traded level on Saturday. And very often what happens is that whenever a point of control of a certain session, a session being a day, what often happens is that when that point of control is not touched, right? So it hasn't been touched since then, right? It's naked. And what happens then is that very often that brings about a little bit of a magnet to that price level. And then at this level right here, so that would be 1.33. We also have the previous week value area low. We have a value area low coming from some time ago. I'm not sure when. I think it's the the weekly value area low. So then you get quite a high confluence zone at this level, at that naked point of control in the previous week VWAP between 1.32 and 1.33. So outside of Bitcoin, which we'll get to in a moment, outside of Bitcoin, for majors, I would say that is an interesting level, right? So if we see something like this on XRP, we drop down below that naked point of control, or we hit it with a strong spike. I think from there you can long into the 7-day rolling VWAP. It's an intraday chart, right? So don't expect major gains, or an intraday trade, I should say. But ultimately, that is what I would see on XRP, right? So I would definitely keep your eyes on 1.32.5. And then alternatively, if the markets are quite bearish, right? So if the fundamentals get more bearish, usually I shift to being a little bit more risk off. So what I would then wait for, because it's a nice support zone, but it's not the strongest, then I would wait for something like this. Hit the previous month value area low at 1.31, reclaim, enter with a retest, then into the 7-day rolling VWAP. But that general area, 1.32.5 and 1.31, the combination of those two levels for XRP I like for a long. But then, but then obviously you still need to be very reactive to the fundamentals, because everything I'm saying right now is based on how the fundamentals are right now, right? If the fundamentals change, I will either get a little bit more aggressive, right? So, for example, on Bitcoin, we just established that we have a strong support level right here at 67,500, and we have a strong support level at 66,000. If the equities continue to aggressively dump, then I will 100% wait for 66,000. Okay, and that's not the ideal trading setup, but then that's just that's just a safer bet. However, if equities are quite my apologies, let me drink something real quick. If equities are strong and the volatility index goes down, so that the fundamentals get a little bit more risk on, then I will be much more interested in buying 67,500 and potentially getting something like this, right? So I expect the price to push down. We spoke about that earlier. And then if we do something like this, like we tap that gap here to the downside, reclaim 67,600, long, right? So something like this, and then I would long the reclaim into the 30-day rolling VWAP, stop loss below the spike. That would be a setup that I would be interested in, but that's depending on the fundamentals. And under the current fundamentals, I think it's I still think we should pay attention to this level, and it's still a potential long, but I think it's more likely we're going to push down. So those are my thoughts here on majors, so Bitcoin and XRP and what I'm looking at. Let's talk about some altcoins, because I have to say earlier today, altcoins actually looked quite interesting as well. So I do want to cover briefly here what altcoins I'm looking at, why I'm looking at those, and also some potential setups. And then we'll get to the requests. So quickly, talking about the chat, Wayne, Weedham People, Majat, welcome to the stream. Berkani, welcome back. Dog, James, good to have you all here. Majad, no, I don't think there's going to be a big dump in March or April. I think the next month, 2 months, 3 months, I think we can actually get a little bit more of recovery. I can be wrong, but that is at this point of time my bias. And then I expect more bearish pressure, unfortunately, over the course of the summer, going into Q3, maybe the start of Q4. I do think we're going to drop down lower with the markets. That is my bias at the moment. But I think it's more likely that March, April, maybe May, and then sell in May, go away. But at least March, April, I think we have the possibility to get some bullish momentum. User, I do consider shorting. Sometimes I do, but at the moment, I think the strength in the markets is a little bit too high. I have shorted Bitcoin in the past months, so I do short. I don't really short altcoins. I do short manipulated altcoins sometimes. Like I shorted River at some point of time, but I don't short often. I mean, shorting generally is more difficult than going long. That is a simple truth. I've found that through experience. But if you ask some of the best traders, at least if you're a discretionary trader, that is often considered true. I mean, shorters tend to get hunted much more aggressively through time. It's also the risk reward is more difficult to get right. So that's why I prefer to take longs. But to be honest, when we're talking about Bitcoin here, I think you can short. I would 100% at least kind of agree that a short on Bitcoin here is not a bad idea, right? Because we have a liquidation spike. We reclaimed below the 30-day rolling VWAP. It's just, it's 9:20 in the evening right now. And a short like this, I would like to keep an eye on, right? So something like this, from a technical perspective, this is not bad. Risk reward maybe could be better, but it's not bad. So I do consider shorting, and I do short. I just long more often. So yeah, quickly let's talk about altcoins, and then we'll do some requests, because I do see some requests coming in. Verge, broodje kapsalon, we will do. Don't worry, I've noted it. So altcoins, over the course of today, there have been a couple of altcoins that have been quite strong. There's a couple of ways I look at that. Normally at the start of the day, I also use Leviathan. So here you can see the altcoins with most volume. That's something I tend to focus on mostly. So here you can see the relative volume, and I scroll through the first couple of pages, and then you can kind of see, okay, which coins have some sort of have momentum, and which coins should I pay attention to. But I normally only do that at the start of the day, and then throughout the day what I use is Orion, and then sort it by volume. So there's a couple of interesting coins here when we're talking about altcoins. Power is still incredibly strong, very manipulated, but very strong. Hype has elevated volume. VVV has been incredibly strong, also elevated volume. Siren is manipulated, very volatile, has also been strong today. But these manipulated coins, bear with me, but I'm not going to go over those in these videos, because to be quite honest with all of you, it's not something I would recommend you to trade, right? If you're a beginning trader, or if you are a conservative trader, that's just not those are just not coins I would trade. If you want to take a risk, I mean, it's a possibility. I think we just got, like, power 30 minutes ago. I had an alert that it was pumping again, and you can trade that, but still. But a couple more. Near is quite strong. Robo is a new launch. I just saw someone talking in chat about it. I do think that's interesting as well. Pump is relatively high. Form is relatively high volume. WorldCoin relatively high. Aave relatively high. BitTensor relatively high. There is some overlap with those momentum coins, and what you can see right here, and that tends to be the coins that I focus on. Okay, so the altcoins that I'm focusing on right now, I'm not going to take any trades this evening, but we will talk about some setups here. I think Athena is interesting. Athena is interesting for the reason that it has been incredibly overshorted, and we had some high momentum coming in here as well. But the thing with Athena is that, for me, it also seems quite likely that we have broken the structure, so that is quite interesting. But there's one level that I'm looking at with Athena, and that is also the level that I want to point you all towards, and that is 0.1080. As you can see on the higher time frames, that is a respected key level generally, especially on the 4-hour time frame. You can see that's a respected key level. We have the monthly VWAP there, so that also adds a little bit of strength to that. And then on the higher time frames, you can see that into that level we have some gaps. So that is a level with Athena that I'm looking at potentially trading. What I would then be looking at, strong resistance here, is just a strong reaction. Strong reaction, and maybe I'm going to set some limits, but not overnight. But Athena is definitely a coin I think you should watch, for the simple reason that a short squeeze is most likely coming on that. Similarly, Aave. Now, Aave, I think it's a little bit less obvious, and this has also been a little bit more volatile within this range, and there are also some fundamentals that I don't like with Aave. I think some of you might actually know, but there's quite a lot of drama with Aave. Like I said, WorldCoin I think is interesting, but WorldCoin we have the value area high sitting at 41.5 cents. I would prefer to see a breakout above that for a potential trade. That is something that's interesting. Alternatively, you could also go for a trade back in the range. As you can see, we left some gaps to the downside. We have a single print here, but that is I think there's more interesting setups because there's coins like Hedera. No, Hedera at this point in time is not interesting. My apologies. But something like Pump. Yeah, so Pump I actually think is very interesting because Pump had quite a lot of momentum over the course of today and was also quite strong over the course of at the end of last week. But now on so Pump actually got this breakout above 0.2 cents, so 0.002, which quite similar to Athena, as you can see, is quite a respected level here intraday. We also had the monthly value area high there. We broke above that, found strong resistance at the previous month VWAP and the 30-day rolling VWAP. And now I actually do think there is some sort of potential with Pump. Okay, because the key level is 0.2 cents, but we have strong support here in the entire area between 1975 all the way down into 1940. So I think with Pump, it's like we hit strong resistance, and it's a difficult coin to trade as well. But I think with Pump, if we see something like this, right? So if we fill a little bit more into that gap, and then get a reclaim back above that area around 0.2 cents, I think that's actually a long setup. That's a long setup I would keep my eyes on if I were you. But two things. First of all, I think we need to spike down a little bit lower, grab some of the liquidity, get down into that point of control at least at 1965, and then get the reclaim, right? So I'm still waiting for two things on Pump, and then I think it is a trade. But ultimately an interesting altcoin to trade. And then last but not least, let me go over some altcoins. This is VVV, by the way, very strong. Grass has also been very strong. I think maybe this is a little bit more of a manipulated coin, but this is Form, right? So this is less known, so I'll get it on the chart. We saw some good news for Form last week, and since then it has been very strong. Now, I would not buy right now because we have had a strong move into the upside, but I do think if Form gets a move into this area right here at 22.5 cents and 25 cents, I think you should pay attention. So that is also a coin I would keep my eyes on, but I'm much further away from opening a trade on this. I want to see a pullback into that area first, and then we will talk about a potential trade. But I think from a fundamental perspective, this is a coin you should keep your eyes on. And then, last but not least, it's Near. So Near I posted about on X earlier this morning. I think Near is an interesting coin for multiple reasons. It is also very overshorted. The momentum, as you can see coming in right here, is the highest we have seen since early November when we had that other short squeeze. So I think this somewhat has potential, especially for the fact that we are reclaiming a very strong support level. We have a very strong level right here around 1.25, 1.27. You can see on the higher time frames, Near is trying to break above that. Now, I must say this is tricky because we have strong resistance right here around 1.4, and we haven't broken out so far. So this is more of a watch list altcoin. But I did want to have mentioned it for now. I do think this has the chance that if we break above 1.25 and we're able to hold this, I think we have a chance at a bigger move into that level right here. The previous month value area low at 13%, and then the previous month VWAP at 27%. But those are the altcoins that I'm looking at right now. And normally what I do, and I'll do the same tomorrow morning, is I just look at these altcoins. I look at what has momentum, and I cover those outside of majors, right? So that is, I'm only buying Bitcoin spot at this point of time, mainly DCAing and buying a little bit more when we push down. And then I'm trading majors. We covered XRP, we covered Bitcoin, and then I trade altcoins with momentum, usually on the lower time frames. Alternatively, I did want to have mentioned this. I mean, if we get some good news today, right? So if the fundamentals become better and the volatility index comes down a little bit more and equities actually, rally up higher, there is a possibility that we just reclaim the 30-day rolling VWAP. And if Bitcoin reclaims the 30-day rolling VWAP, there is a possibility for an aggressive long, but this is something I will not be taking for the simple reason that if it happens, it's most likely going to be after hours, or it's going to be the Asian session, and I won't be awake. And I don't think this is most likely either, but it is a trade setup, right? And most of you know this, especially if you're watching these live streams. But I'm very pragmatic, right? So I think it's most likely that we are going to drop down right now for Bitcoin. And then, as we spoke about earlier, we have 67,500 as strong support, and then 66,200. I think one of those two areas is a buy area, is a buy target. It depends a little bit on the fundamentals, which one of the two, but we spoke about that earlier, so I don't think we need to go over that too much. Everybody, we are going to go to the requests, okay? I know many of you have been waiting for this, so that's what we're going to do. Matic, I've been training for years. You want to see the muscles on screen, on the camera? Navid, multiple things. It's so the question is how do you personally differentiate between a high and low probability setup? It's confluences. Okay, so how many good reasons can I find to take a trade? It's also confluences in the opposite direction. How many reasons can I find to not take a trade? If that's a lot, then that diminishes the positive confluences. It is market circumstances. It is whether I've traded a coin more often, whether I actually have a good win rate on that. So a lot of things. Alex, we spoke about the XRP. We spoke about XRP at when we also talked about Bitcoin. The Ken, I'm from the Netherlands, Amsterdam to be precise. No, but Matic, the fundamentals are quite. The fundamentals are not necessarily good, but the fact that crypto is reacting quite well to it, that is good. And then that combined with a Coinbase Bitcoin premium is actually quite good as well. I'm not sure, Alex. Lagging behind. How do you know it is? Yeah, broodje kapsalon, it's 100%. It's 100% very strong at this point of time. It's a very good sign generally. Okay, let's do some requests. Dog requested XCN, so let's start off with that. We'll do a couple of requests. I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover everything, but at least a little bit. Yeah, so XCN at the moment, it is the general theme with XCN has obviously been that it's in a massive downtrend, and every now and then you get a big short squeeze, right? So the big question is can we expect a short squeeze right now? It seems to me that there actually is something brewing on XCN. We had some major longs getting out of the positions right here. Now there are new longs coming in, but the funding rates are incredibly negative. I mean, the last time we saw funding rates like this on XCN is a long time ago, and usually that turns into a bit of a spike into the upside in terms of price. So I have to say that from that perspective, I think we can be slightly optimistic about XCN. The most important level that I see to the upside is sitting right here at 5 cents and 0.51 cents. So generally, this is what I normally say on XCM, but I would say expect us to continue dropping down lower. Place a price alert at a half a cent, so 0.005. Break above that, and we can get a short squeeze. And then get after that short squeeze, unfortunately, I think it's most likely we're going to push down lower. But I do think that short squeeze is coming closer. Funding rates have been very negative, so that's generally a good sign for XCN, I would say. Link, bitte sehr, aber jawohl. Chainlink. Yeah, so it's very correlated with the market, right? This is basically Bitcoin's chart. So if I would take a look at Link right now and we take a look at we grab some sort of a monthly volume profile. Most important levels for Link. Oh, that's not it. Most important levels for Link are right here at 9.1, 9.2 to the upside, and then to the downside 8.2. I would I would say it's most likely this is just going to follow Bitcoin. And follow Bitcoin at this point of time is somewhere in the next 2 months, get the breakout. Link actually has some beautiful gaps into the upside that we can fill into at 10.2 and 11.2. At some point of time, get the breakout. For now, I would say it's most likely that we're going to remain rotational though. Right, so those are, that I just named before, those are the two areas to watch. I do think there's an argument to be made for Link to also try a long when we drop down into some of the older gaps right here. So Link, you can also see that we have a naked point of control fair value gap combination here. We have previous week, previous month value area low. So if we do something very aggressive like this, that could be a buy opportunity for Link as well. But otherwise, I would wait for the breakout, honestly. Because Chainlink, I love the project, for sure. But it's relatively not strong at the moment. The Ken, thank you very much. Yeah, the Ken, I've done that before, but it's the thing is that you'd have to be scalping. And I'd be streaming for hours. That is something that it's a possibility, but we need to do it under very volatile circumstances. I can try then. There's no guarantee that it will be profitable, but I can try then. And it needs to be a couple of hours. So that is it's something I've done, but generally it's difficult to fit into the schedule, honestly. Yeah, Doc, it's look, I was in your time zone a couple of months ago, and it's crazy how different it is. In the United States, it's really a blessing how you experience the markets, because the markets really get moving once you get moving, and then you can really experience you can really experience the market slowly, warming up, slowly opening up, and then you get a lot of good price action usually, because the United States in the evening also gets some of that Asian session price action. I'm based in Europe, and I have to say the European price action and the European session usually sucks. The Asian session and the US session are much better. So that's a bit of a shame, but we have to do with what we get, right? Athena, Matic, we spoke about that. We looked at Athena. When I spoke about when I talked about altcoins, we also talked about Athena. But I agree, it's quite strong. And there's a level into the downside that I think is quite interesting as well. Fetch, Bruno, welcome to the stream. Last time I covered this, we spoke about a potential breakout. Oh, Fetch is quite weak here. No, Fetch, look, the only reason I would be slightly optimistic on Fetch is that I'm slightly optimistic about the markets, but honestly, at the moment, Fetch is not very interesting. We rejected very hard at the 7-day rolling VWAP. Most coins have broken above the 7-day rolling VWAP today. We have a bit of a target right here at 16.5 cents, which we can rally into, but there's not a lot of strength. So Fetch, I would generally say that we will remain rotational, right? So you can see generally we've been rotational right here. I expect that to continue. Maybe we can get a move into 16.5, but a real breakout I wouldn't expect for now. There's there's moments that Fetch and BitTensor, etc., do very, very, very well. But I would say at this point of time, that's not one of those moments. Yeah, Alex, true. No, XRP is relatively weak. If you look at XRP BTC, you'll see. Here, this is XRP BTC. It's been pushing down since Sunday morning. That's just sometimes what happens. It's not something you can always predict, and there's not always a reason behind it. I did see some new news reports coming in about a lot of XRP Binance inflows. So potentially a lot of XRP being sold on Binance, not by Binance, but on Binance. So there might be a will offloading a lot of XRP. That's a possibility, but it's always quite hard to look at that. I mean, we could look at that if I place it right here. Let me look it up for you. We actually can check it out. No, Binance No, Binance is actually buying XRP, so that is not correct. That is not that's not an assumption, or that's not a conclusion we can draw based on that based on that news. Oh, Verge, I almost forgot. Mr. Capsulon, I almost forgot. My apologies. CW Protsman, I don't know. It is it depends a little bit. If we do get it, I think that's going to be the bottom, but we will only get it if we see quite severe escalation in the Middle East, and I'm not certain if we're going to get that. Right, and I do want to speculate on that. I can speculate on that. I don't think we're going to see that. So based on that, I would say no, we're not waiting for that to bottom out. But I do still think it's more likely that we are bottoming rather than we're going to get the breakout from the bottom right here. So it remains a bit speculation based on the fundamentals. But yeah, Verge, man, it's been a while since I covered this. Look at this chart. It's just been one major consolidation right here, right? Value area low right here at 0.56. Value area high at 0.8. The thing is that with Verge, there's not a lot of momentum or not a lot of reason for me to suspect that we are going to get a move into the upside yet. Alex, yes, that is a possibility. I do think so with XRP. No, but the thing with Verge is that at the moment funding rates are positive. CVD is not necessarily attractive. Like at some point of time, Verge is going to get momentum again, right? So Verge is going to move up and get a move into the upside, just like we've seen in the last couple of months. But I would say for now, it's more likely that we will continue this drop into the bottom of the range. I don't think we're going to get a big bearish breakdown, but probably find support around 0.5 cent somewhere, and then be patient. And it's a matter of time before we get that move into the upsides. I think that's the base case. And sometimes that gets invalidated, and there's a possibility it gets invalidated as well, of course. But generally, I do think something like this is more likely. It's just that this might take a little bit longer, right? So we might actually see something like this instead. Yeah, Rami, I agree. I think Bitcoin will go down to 50,000 as well. And there's always going to be people that, like this morning, someone in the comments said that I was calling for 50,000 over the course of the weekend. And then all of a sudden I'm calling it a breakout. I think we will go down to 50,000 and potentially lower. But I think before that, we can see some bullish momentum, right? It's just about the timing. It's just about when I expect what, in this case. Okay, let's do 2 more requests. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. Druids on Arbitrum, I had one level in mind. It's actually on my watch list, but there's one level I think you need to keep your eyes on, and that is very easily. It's 0.106. Okay, so that is the previous value area low. That's also the point of control of that liquidation spike we had Friday the 27th. If we break above that, I think that's a sufficient structure break that you can actually expect to move into 11.8 cents. Anything under here is just ranging, it's just choppy, right? So avoid anything under here. Get risk on it at if we break above 10.6 cents, and then if we fail to hold that, close it, right? That's my general idea on Arbitrum. I'm not certain if I'm going to trade this because, if we get that breakout above 10.6 cents, there's a possibility there's going to be other breakouts as well that I'm a little bit more keen on trading and buying into. But that is the general area I would keep your eyes on. Rami, BitTensor. Yeah, we'll take a look at BitTensor last here. So BitTensor for me, I wanted to, so what I had is something like a three week range from Monday the 16th. And what you can see there is that we had the value area high at 194. Value area low at 173. We hit that into the previous month value area high, into the previous month point of control right here. We got mean reversion. So that is generally the level that I think we need to break above to get a move into 211. 211 is my next target on BitTensor. Do I think it's most likely that we're going to get that breakout right now? No, not necessarily, especially if you look at the higher time frames. We also have gaps into the downside. Like a lot of altcoins look like this, right? So it is certainly possible that BitTensor, if we get a strong reaction here around 180, that from there we're going to break out. But I think the rejection that we have seen so far, it's a strong resistance level, 193, 194. I think it's more likely we're going to fill some of those gaps. And then if we get a strong reaction, we can break out, right? So strong reaction right here, immediately back up to 192, we can break out. Weak reaction, right? So if we drop down into that and we kind of consolidate here, we're just going to remain rotational within this range, and then eventually hopefully break out. I think that's it for now, everybody. I think that's it for now. It's almost 10 o'clock. It's almost bedtime. Okay, Bitcoin quite strong at the moment. Did we get any news? Maybe we can end on that. So we spoke about this possible setup on Bitcoin. We just had we won't let oil leave the region. Strait of Hormuz closed. Iran to set on fire any ship trying to pass. So that is the news that we got. I mean, it's fascinating how the markets work. Oil prices are up slightly, not a huge amount. Volatility index is up slightly. I have to say that, you know, news like this very often seems very bearish. But this was basically already the status quo, right? So this is not a major change. And that's why sometimes you get a lot of shorts piling in based on news like this. I think you can also see that if we look at this, right? So we had the news, you have some shorts coming in right here, and then those shorts become trapped. We had a lot of shorts piling in here, price barely moved. So this actually, in a strange way, this bad news coming out, actually in a strange way makes it more interesting to buy Bitcoin here if we break the 30-day rolling VWAP. First price target is probably like 71,500 and then 73,000. But like I said, I mean, although like if Bitcoin here breaks above the 30-day rolling VWAP and we get a bit of a retest like this, like maybe that's a long, but it's not something I'll be trading, and it's high risk in general because the only thing you have is a 30-day rolling VWAP and some trapped shorts, right? I think it's actually more likely. I think this is a better setup. If you're watching this in the morning or something, and by the way, this live stream is almost 50 minutes. I'm not going to be able to do that every time, but I think it's more interesting, and we'll talk about this this next morning as well on Bitcoin. I think it's more interesting if we do something like this, right? So we trap and we liquidate those shorts that came in based on the news on Bitcoin. Then we get a rejection. We trap longs, we liquidate the shorts, and then fall back below the 30-day rolling VWAP, and then short Bitcoin, right? I think that's a more interesting position if you do something like this. So keep your eyes on a setup like this, and then, like I said, 67,500 and 66,200 are the two first areas where I will potentially long Bitcoin again. That's it for now. Sukrop, I'm very sorry. I'll try to make a video on Oster very soon. That boy Kevin, you were a little bit late, but maybe tomorrow you're on time, because we will be doing these streams daily. So hopefully I'll see all of you tomorrow again. Maybe it's going to be a little bit earlier. We'll see. Like I said, I'm still figuring this out. Hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you found it valuable. And I'll be back with the standard schedule and videos tomorrow morning.